I could spend an entire evening every Wednesday talking about what's happening in the world. I've said it before, 25 years of ministry, 25 years of being a student of prophecy. And I think back to eschatology classes when I was in my 20s in Bible college, and learning this stuff, never realizing or never thinking it was actually going to kind of flush out in my lifetime. And now here I am, and I'm watching this stuff, and I spend my mornings reading newspapers and news stories and news channels and this and that. And I'm like, oh, there's one, oh, there's one, oh, there's one, oh, there's one. And it's just over and over again. And the hardest part is not talking about everything. Maybe we need to dedicate an hour first to the prophecy update and then the second hour just to Bible study. I know Brandon does that, but for the sake of time, I have a couple things. This is a bit of a soapbox for me. You know, I'm a staunch supporter of Israel. That's a biblical stance. Understanding the full history, going back to the time of calling of Abraham and then the deliverance out of Egypt and into the promised land, and then the whole history of Israel, God's faithfulness in her covenant, the coming of the Messiah, the rejection of the Messiah, and how all this fits in with Daniel's prophecies regarding Israel's role in the end times, understanding the eternal and unconditional covenants that God gave to Israel. And it's kind of funny because in a book I'm working on now regarding Israel and end times, I am talking about this very thing today. But all that culminating to one major thing that happened in Israel's history in recent, which was in 2006, Israel surrendered Gaza, the Gaza Strip, what we call the Gaza Strip, over to the Palestinians. The reason they did that is because they wanted peace. They wanted to give the Palestinians an opportunity to have peace and to live in peace and be successful. They were given all the land, all the cities, everything that was there, infrastructure, everything, turned it over to the Palestinians, withdrew completely from the land that is rightfully theirs, and Palestine, or the Gazans, proceeded to build a terrorist empire. Billions and billions of dollars were sent into Gaza to help them build, to help them become a fruitful and productive society, to help them do whatever they wanted to make Gaza what could have been the crown jewel of the Middle East very easily. They haven't been oppressed by the world, and especially by Israel. Israel provides free medical care to people that are in Gaza that needs specialized surgeries. They provide all kinds of technology help. It just goes on. They provide employment. There's 12 million Arabs that live in Israel today. Most people don't know that. Not everybody lives in Israel. The Israel territory of Israel, which is kind of weird to say, is Jewish. There's many Arabs, and they love Israel. And there's Palestinian Christians that live in Israel proper, right there, that love Israel. So, but there in Gaza, they were given this land for the purpose of peace. And since that time, they built a terrorist regime with the Hamas. I've said it before. They took pipes that were given for their sewer and water system so they could advance their infrastructure. And what they do with them? They made missiles out of them. They took donations, books, Earnwood donations, medical stuff, and they sold it. They hoarded it. They kept it from the people. I'm going to tell this story because we don't have any young people in here. I talked to a Christian family while I was on Natal Hala'as, which is on the north. It's a kibbutz on the north side of Gaza, between Ashkelon and Jabaliah. And I was standing, and you may have, if you were here when I presented, I'm showing you a picture of northern Gaza where they're firing rockets and stuff like this. I was able to talk to a family. And the story goes like this. This is how they present it. And this is through translation, so I believe I got the story right. Our IDF contact is pretty astute with translation. But this family was on the northern side of Gaza. They're Palestinian Christians. The level of fear that the Hamas has put into the Palestinian people is beyond anything we can comprehend. If any one of us saw our children in danger, heaven or hell hath no fury to what we would do to protect them, to save them, and to make sure that they are unharmed, especially from somebody that is doing ill. There's not, probably every single one of us here would jump in front of a bullet or do whatever we could to protect our kids. This family was a known Christians in Gaza, and while they were in Gaza, the terrorists came along to intimidate the family, and they took their 7-year-old son and they hung him on the fence by the shirt collar. The boy was being hung to death, and the family was immobilized, unable to move because of fear of retaliation from the Hamas to the rest of their family. And they looked through the living room window and watched their son die. Horrific. Just to hear the story, I had tears coming out of my eyes. I just wanted to do something. Can you imagine the fear that has gripped this area because of the evil that is being perpetrated every single day there? And it's still going on. They don't show the protests of the Gazans that are protesting Hamas, and then the subsequent shootings that are happening, women, boy, children, whoever. They don't show all this stuff. The narrative that is coming out is that Israel is trying to starve Hamas. First thing I open up when I open up my news site was this story I saw first on PBS news site, and I thought, wow, they're talking about abortion in America. When I saw 14,000 babies are about to die in 48 hours, I thought they were talking about abortion for a minute. And then I read on, and I'm thinking, what do you mean? Could die in Gaza in the next 48 hours. Hold on to that statistic for a moment, because it's a total fabrication. Yesterday, Israel sent in another 100 truckloads of aid, including food, baby formula, baby food, into Gaza, as they're going in with tanks and they're systematically moving innocent civilians away from danger zones. They're also sending trucks in for aid. 9 of those trucks were hijacked. The aid was stolen. That's actually a pretty good number for the wartime, because a lot of that food was stolen. A lot of it is wound up in Egypt, and a lot of it is wound up in other parts other than for the aid that it's supposed to go to, the Gazans. The narrative is that Israel is allowing the Gazans to starve. That's what this is meant to do. You see that and you think, well, oh my goodness, what is Israel doing? You know, all these children are about to die and starve, and Israel's not doing anything about it. All they care about is the war. And the narrative is they got to stop the war because the kids are about to die. Now, they don't care about the thousands of babies that are murdered every day here in the U.S. under the abortion knife, but they're going to use this. But here's the thing. How did the UN determine 14,000 kids in 48 hours? This is a statistic that came out from the UN. It's a complete fabrication. Out of their complete moral bankruptcy for the UN, and to purport a absurdity that doesn't exist, they took the stat of the malnutrition rate in Gaza over the next year and replaced malnutrition with death, and then they took the year and replaced it with 48 hours. So the actual statistic that the UN was quoting was that in the next year, there will be 14,000 Gazan children that will be suffering from malnutrition. What they did was they said in 48 hours, 14,000 Gazan children will be killed. That's a big alteration of the truth. And it's a flat-out lie, especially when you have Israel is fighting a war, and you heard Olivia say, he's fighting a war on 7 fronts and 8 if you include the media. So they have to continually fight this optics war. And of all the moral, bankrupt absurdities the world could accuse Israel of, and the list is long, the best one has to be that Israel is committing genocide and starving Gazans. There is video, just plain video, of markets open, full of food, people eating. Yes, they're getting fat too. Yes, there's strenuous situations, but that's not the narrative that is being told. Well, go ahead, Nicole.
And I'm on social media a lot, and I follow a lot of people that get a lot of really recent videos coming out of Gaza. There's videos of like teenage boys. One of them was holding up a bag of flour, and he was complaining that it had Hebrew writing on it. Look, if that's what's bothering you, you're not hungry enough. And that's a good way also, you were saying that stuff is ending up in Egypt. That's a good way to track things. So if we know that it's already marked and packaged Israeli, we know where it's ending up. The other one is there's been a couple like activists that end up like quasi-journalists in Gaza. And I think this one was Amir had posted it, like a before and an after, like October, like 2023 and year and a half later. This guy was not small to begin with, but now he's like huge. His belly's gotten so big, and it's like, yeah, we're starving him. If there's no food, how are you gaining all this weight? And I noticed anytime you watch when they did the hostage releases and they would show everybody, there's nobody starving. They look very healthy, except for the hostages. The women even look halfway decent. The kids are good size. They're running around. They have energy. They're not starving. And yes, I've seen the live video. Like you can go on YouTube and find just live cams, and you see only men, walking around the streets. The food carts and stuff are open. There's a cell phone in every hand, so they obviously have electricity somehow. So. If you look for it, that's definitely not true.
And that fits the point that what's being portrayed in media is not the reality. What's being portrayed in media is for the purpose of villainizing Israel. Sure, I get it. It's a war zone. Things aren't going to be easy. We're not expecting it to be easy. But at the same time, there's been a long list of aid that's gone in. But here's the truth. Hamas could end this war today. Release the hostages and let the humanitarian come in. And what happens is the Hamas steals it, the Hamas destroys it. Israel has made two things clear. You release our hostages and you lay down your weapons. Because for the last 20-some years, Israel has lived under the threat and the continual bombardment of rockets and missiles. And it's a ray of life. You sit in a kibbutz, the siren goes off once a day, twice a week, whatever, and you have to go to your bomb shelter. And that was what they were doing on October 7th. They were expecting, the missile's coming in from Gaza. We hide in our bomb shelter to make sure every house has to have a bomb shelter. Every school has to have a bomb shelter. Every place on the streets, you have these cement buildings. But here, and then, on October 7th, they heard the siren. They went in and they were hiding in their bomb shelters. A lot of these bomb shelters don't have locks, because they're not meant to protect you from the incursion of a terrorist. They're just there to make sure that if a bomb goes off near your house or on your house, you're not going to get injured. So these people are hiding in their bomb shelters, and the sirens are going to keep going and keep going. And the next thing you know, they're getting messages on WhatsApp. The terrorists are there, and they're thinking, oh, there's a few terrorists that have encouraged. And then the next thing you know, they're hearing about thousands of terrorists. 20 years is a very specific number. You think about it, because it took 20 years for the Hamas to raise up a generation of people that were trained and conditioned to hate Jews just for the sake of hating Jews. We've talked about the Gazan Sesame Street and the Gazan kindergarten textbooks that all purport Israel as villains that are seeking to kill them. But the entire situation in Gaza is perpetrated and continued by plain evil, the Hamas. And meanwhile, Western companies, and this is the most laughable part of this whole story, and I'm going to get off the soapbox here. France, the Netherlands, and Great Britain are all enforcing an embargo or something against Israel to keep people from buying their goods. And they're quoting and they're bringing Hamas terrorists on their news channels to interview them. We're giving credence to the terrorists. And this is normal. Of course, look at Britain, France, and the Netherlands now. They're all overrun by Islamic migrants anyway. Here is a video from Gaza. It's a Gazan resident who has his opinion on the situation. We'll need sound. We will not regret October 7th, even if we are all killed. I swear to God, even if we're all killed, we would not regret it on October 7th. Yeah, he was hurting. He's missed as many meals as I have. These multiple fronts are all leading to a verge of an all-out war. I think what we're seeing is just, again, the kindling that's getting ready to start the fire. The White House is reporting that Trump's patience is wearing thin on Israel and Gaza. We're getting a lot of very conflicting messages about what's happening in the White House with regards to Trump's relationship with Netanyahu or Israel. I think Trump would love to see the Gazan conflict come to an end before the midterms arrive. That's political, but new intel warns that Israel is about to gear up and strike Iran. They've been ready. They've been wanting to for some time. I've been waiting for permission or support especially from the U.S. to go do so. Twice they've been scaled back significantly or stopped. I don't think it's going to happen this time. I don't think that Israel is going to be waiting for permission. I think they're going to just act. In New York next month, we may see the United Nations come together with the intent to pressure Israel into accepting a Palestinian state. We know what this means. We know that is a certain judgment. We know that God's not going to tolerate it. And so things are happening at an alarming rate. And I just had to zero in on Israel because everything else is fed off that. So, we go on with the earthquakes and the weather disasters. And someone was telling me the other day, we were having lunch, they said, I've never remembered this many weather disasters happening in our nation like this as it's going on. So lift up your heads, your redemption is drawing nigh. Jesus says, behold, I'm coming quickly, I'm coming soon. And that is what is happening. Revelation, I think it's 3:17. He says, behold, I am coming quickly, I am coming soon.